national interest or strategic interest. That's what they call it. And so they're over there now trying to make sure that they get their share of the oil that's there. I remember one of our young men, the first Iraq War, the first casualty, it was just a bitter irony. I just was so very angry about that. The first casualty of that first Iraq War was an indigenous person. And not just an indigenous person, was a Dakota person. And not just a Dakota person, but from this community. I remember one time his sister was in my class, and somehow we got to this talking on the topic of imperialism, and she talked about her brother. 2 weeks before he was killed, he wrote home to his mother and said, "Mom, it's all about oil." And his sister was telling that story in class. Tears were coming down her cheeks. Then she turned around and faced the whole class and said, "I hate the United States." So you get an idea of sometimes how some indigenous people feel. Generally, the colonized, Christianized peoples, Dakotas don't feel like that. But it's a lot of the people who know their history and maybe who are traditional people following the old ways, they'll think like that. And so I'm encouraging, and white people, like I always tell people, I can't, if I and a white man did it, but I learned in the 70 winters, I and a white man did it, but eventually, that whose person are other white people going to believe? Or who are the cops going to believe? They're going to believe the white person. My word counts for nothing. And my word is as dung in their eyes. So, Lord, that's why, too, I'm trying to get to white people who they think I'm making sense. And start studying. And then, well, I better get going there. I better keep going there. I can say that again. Anyway, so they did build a fort. Well, they didn't build a fort, by the way, but they did eventually, I don't know, around 1819, 1820, they did build a fort. And they called it Fort St. Anthony. And today it's called Fort Snelling. And then I wanted to say about Article 1, it says that the Sioux Nation grants to the United States the full sovereignty and power over said districts forever. I submit and I firmly believe that the Dakotas then did not know what that word sovereignty meant. And they probably didn't really understand forever either. Because this was the white man's game. This language. And not our language. And then those who translated there, as I was telling somebody, if it was a Dakota helping to translate, how well did he know English? So he could translate Dakota in understandable, acceptable English, accurate English. Or if it was a white man, how well did the white man know Dakota so he could translate English into accurate Dakota? I don't know who was, I've never even studied that. So. But the full sovereignty and power, but I just think that is a comment. Article 2, there's only 3 articles here. Article 2 deals with consideration for payment for the land. Like the President Pike estimated the value of this 155,000 acres plus to be around $200,000. And they pulled the same kind of trick that they did with many other Native peoples. When that treaty got back to Washington, D.C., Congress would then change it. So instead of putting $200,000 there, they put in $2,000. So we figure the United States owes us $198,000 plus interest since 1805. Knowing full well, we're not going to do any of that. But, we can dream. But one of the things is we can show to people and to the world, what the United States is like, that they do not honor their own treaties. And treaties are the supreme law of the land according to their own sacred document, the U.S. Constitution, Article 6. Okay, so Then Article 3, this is the one that is impertinent for, at least from my point of view, for today's class or session, that the United States promise on their part to permit the suit to pass, repass, fund, or make other uses of said districts as they have formally done without any other exception but those specified in Article 1. Now, I'd like to ask you, when it says the United States promise, what's that mean? Do you have to go to law school? Do you have to go to William Mitchell College of Law to say the United States promise? What does that mean? Or can anyone with a modicum of intelligence interpret the meaning of that? To me, it just means promise. And then to permit the suit to pass, repass, hunt, and make other uses of said district as they have formerly done. And our people formerly lived there in that 155,000 acres. They hunted, they fished, they trapped, they farmed, they conducted ceremonies, they had access to their sacred sites, they protected their burial places. All of these things that the Dakota people were doing before the white man ever came, they were doing those things. And so these are things that they have formally done. And so that's why I say that, because you have to go to a college or law school to really understand. That's what I'm asking you people too. Can you understand that, what that means? Or is it so complex? It's just really complex and abstract and really hard to understand. It's the same with like Bible verses too. Sometimes I'll say, like in genocide, the book I'm writing is how the Bible verses were used to justify killing of indigenous peoples, either before, during, or after a genocidal incident. So I'll say to them, when somebody says in the Old Testament, God says, kill everything that hath breath, you think you have to go to a seminary to know what that means? You think you have to be a theologian to know what that means? Kill everything that hath breath? Or leave nothing alive that breatheth. You have to go to seminary for that? You have to be a priest or pastor or minister to understand that? And of course my answer is no, you don't have to. Even though you're looking at a guy who was a very colonized and Christianized Dakota. I even went to a seminary, Seabury Western Theological Seminary in Gettysburg, I studied to be an Episcopal priest. But that was a past life. Fortunately, I always say, and I say it like those early missionaries, somehow I was fortunate enough to come out of the darkness of Christianity into the glorious light of Dakota spirituality. How's that sound? What I thought, like those early missionaries, they didn't mind saying the things that they said. They said real hurtful things. And then, well, okay, so then I just want to, a couple other things I wanted to say here. That on the back are the Professor Howard Vogel's notes. He's a professor at the Hamilton University School of Law. So, but anyway, one of the things he tells you that there was a total of 155,520 acres, so that's right in the middle of the page, 155,520 acres. The other thing that I wanted to say, a typical trick too that the white man used, representatives of the U.S. government used, he brought 60 gallons of liquor to help grease transactions. And I always tell people, geez, if I was back then and I drank some of that liquor, I'd say, I'd lick my tongue. Where do you want me to put the mark so I can have some more booze? I think that some of that so unscrupulous, corrupt, shameful, dishonest, these kinds of transactions. This is repeated hundreds upon hundreds of times between the United States government and its representatives and indigenous peoples. The last thing that I want to say, there's only 2 signatures on the treaty, and they were from one fire. So first of all, that means when they say between the United States of America and the Sioux Nation of Indians, that only one fire was represented, that they allowed to well, that's by Nsswe. That's the group who had named one of the casinos after themselves, Nsswe Casino. And they got another one, after one of their leaders, who shot that up, for Little Six Casino. And they named it. It's kind of like the way Japanese do it. They name some of the cars with Japanese names instead of they become household words. And when you got money, you can do that. And so they got some money, so in a minor way, they're doing that as well here in the state of Minnesota. So I wanted to say that. And then I'll finish up. We did this, the Great Oyak Petition, on Friday, May 13th, 2011. And we chose Cedar Lake. And this other guy's name is Jim Anderson. He chose it. He said the reason he chose it is because he said it's a clean lake and it's got lots of good fish in there. Well, we caught 59 fish with our net. And a couple of them were muskies. And there were some a couple northerns, and some nice bass, and the rest were sunfish and crappies. We didn't catch any of the fish that I used to grow up with here along the Minnesota River back in the 40s and 50s. We didn't catch any carp, and we didn't catch any sheephead, and we didn't catch any bullheads. We didn't catch any sheephead, but I already said that. But we caught real good fish, eating fish that everybody likes to eat. Then I would like to mention that in 2005, the 200th anniversary of the Treaty of 85, we went fishing then. Nothing happened. And so in 2008, the 150th birthday of Minnesota as a state, the sesquicentennial, we went fishing then too, at Lake Harriet. Nothing happened. In fact, this one guy, he was a state park policeman. He was riding his bicycle, and one time he drove by several times. One time he even waved at us. And I should have known by it, because he had a ponytail. He had a baseball cap on, then he had a ponytail sticking out through the head there. So he probably was sympathized with us, so he wasn't going to do anything about that. So nothing got done there. It's like Jim Anderson said, Jesus, I should have called the cops myself. Hey, there's some Indians down here fishing illegally. And then I want to mention 2012, the 150th anniversary of the Dakota-U.S. War of 1862, and which white historians refer to as the Sioux Uprising of 1862. And that's another thing that white historians, especially Minnesota historians, do, is that they don't want to tell the truth. Like there was 2 concentration camps. One for the women and children at Fort Snelling, and one for the men at Mato or Luder or Mankato, Minnesota. They don't talk about that. They prefer the term internment. And does that sound much nicer? Because you all know concentration camp, you say that, what you think of right away. Think of the Jews, and think of Hitler, and think of the Nazis. But I guess I want to say this to you. Like Jack Weatherford, in his book, Native Roots. Have you ever read that book? Anybody? Oh, wonderful. All right. In there, he says, he's looking at a picture of the Fort Snelling camp. All the rows, orderly rows of teepees of the Dakota, where they were for the cold winter of 1862, 1863. And he says that as he saw that picture, he felt like he was witnessing the birth of an institution that was around the 20th century. And he talked about how the Russians used that institution there at Fort Snelling. How the people in South America, the Dutch, used that. And how the Germans used that. The social practice of gathering up non-combatants, civilians by the military, and concentrating them in a specific geographical location and holding them there for protracted periods of time without charging them with any crime. Gee, time and crime. Anyway, that was an excellent definition of concentration camp. But yet, the Minnesota Historic Society does not want to use that word. But that's what it is. And that's why I'm calling you. I just came back from Rutgers a month ago, and I'd like to get some of the genocide scholars from outside the United States to look at what happened here and start writing about the genocide here. These Western Europeans. Okay. So, because that might be the only way that it's going to get done, unless there's one or two of you who might start calling a spade, calling things for what they really are, and teaching the truth. Or like, I should have brought the handouts too, like I usually do. I don't know why I didn't here, but I also have a picture of the bounties of the advertisement that appeared in the Winona Republican in September 23rd of 1863, $200 for every redskin sent to purgatory. Bounties. What kind of people put bounties on another people? What is the purpose of bounties? And they put bounties, when these farmers out here put bounties on coyotes or wolves. What is their intent? Well, we all know. The intent is to kill. The intent is to exterminate. That was the purpose of the Euro Minnesotans and the state legislature, to kill Dakotas. Ramsey, the governor, says extermination or removal of the Dakota. He didn't say that once or twice. He said that many times publicly, and the newspapers echoed that, and the military and the settlers all echoed that. There was a genocidal mentality during the 19th century here in Minnesota, wanted to exterminate or kill all the Dakota. And Ramsey was amazingly successful. Probably about 90 to 95% of the Dakota either were killed or they fled the state. And then those that weren't killed and fled the state, they were removed by two boats going down the Mississippi River, then up the Missouri to Niobrara, and then finally the rest of them, most of them ending up in Coal Creek, South Dakota. He was really successful, very efficient. And that's why, too, like Hitler was a student of U.S. history. I remember one time, FDR, in the early 1940s, heard these rumors about what was happening with the Jews, where he cabled Hitler to express his concern about what he supposedly, allegedly was doing to the Jews. And Hitler cabled back and said, clean up your house first. And that's, he was talking about the genocide. In fact, Hitler many times said to his inner circle of advisors how much he admired he used the word efficiency, or whatever the German word that can be translated into efficiency. The efficiency of the U.S. genocidal programs against the native peoples of the U.S., and he viewed them as forerunners for his own plans and programs against the Jews, the Gypsies, the physically handicapped, and everybody else he did not like. So, U.S. is a really good killer, efficient killer. And there are a lot of things I could say about that, but I'll just suffice it here that I'm hoping that people, like at the college, higher education institution, I'm hoping, like political science institutions should have been teaching, or departments should have been teaching about treaties over there at Southwest Minnesota State University. But they didn't. And I'm hoping some of you can teach that maybe you'll actually look at a tree. That's why I gave you a copy. It's probably the first time for a lot of you.